Okay. Well, I have made a number of notes through the talks this morning. I guess I'd like to say that the Tsawout First Nation is covered by the Douglas Treaty of February 11, 1850. So we feel that this is also a pre-Confederation treaty, and because of that we're not only protected by the Constitution, but also by the Royal Proclamation of 1763, in which the King talks about treating with Indians and says it shall be as if they were the sole occupants to the land, and that these rights will always be for as long as the rivers flow and the sun rises. But it seems to me that when the Douglas treaties were made, they never had any intention of ever having to follow through and follow up on their obligations of the treaty rights that are enshrined and protected in the Constitution. And I think in regards to the protection of the Salish Sea, we also not only need to bump up the protection of the Salish Sea, but also the protection and the enshrinement of the treaty rights in that. I think that they didn't really believe that we were going to be still here, that we were going to be dying off, and that and their obligations would die with that. And I think that feeling is still there among some colonial people, that they would prefer us to disappear. And when the reserves were established long ago here, when they first came across Canada, there was a per capita for reserves. So it depended on the number of people in the community that was the size of the reserve. But when they got here, they said that we weren't fishermen, or we weren't farmers, but that we were fishermen. And therefore we didn't need as much land. And because of this, I think that the government has extra responsibility to protect those rights. We've lost the clams, and the fish are diminishing. So I think that the government needs to strengthen the Department of Fisheries and Oceans again. Their powers have been stripped by the Harper government, and I believe that the protection of the fish is very important. Fisheries and Oceans was doing a good job, or trying to anyway. Way back as well, we had a fishery here, the Saanich, and it was a strong fishery. We had reef net, and my dad said that the word sockeye, is our contribution to the English language. So we were strong fishermen, and we did caught lots of fish. That was our livelihood. And in the early 1930s, the reef net was arbitrarily outlawed, and they told us, or at least my dad told me, he said they came and told us that this was an unfair way to catch fish, and that's why it was outlawed. But then he said they turned around and allowed a soup fisherman to fish with a net, and he made lots of money because he had no competition. But the seas were our highways, and they're very important to the First Nations. We traveled as far south as northern South America, and as far north as Alaska, and as far east as Manitoba. And we know that because they found shells there that we traded that they could only find here in these waters. And we traveled as far west as Hawaii, and sometimes they say that's where we went for our holidays. And in regards to the wash of the boats that are traveling through our waters, we had already had one spit in our territory that was washed out, the Sydney spit. It was washed out from the traffic of the ferries from the United States, the Anacortes Ferry. And I know that our chief and council had great concern about the loss of our spit, that it might be washed out. Because years and years ago, the Sartlet chief and council made a request to come and be allowed, have their members allowed to come down to our beach and cut wood off the beach. And the council denied that request because of that fear. They felt that the logs were there and it would protect the beach from being washed out. So I know that they always had that in their minds. And in regards to the treaty process, they invited us to discard our treaty and join in on the treaty process. And our council also denied that. They said, why should we go into the process when we already have a treaty? And what the government did when they did that process, they didn't look at the land claim at all. They just said, you put in your claim and then we'll look at it. So our entire territory is claimed by our neighboring tribes as overlapping territory. So our entire territory is covered by other people. I think also at that NEB hearing when I spoke, I talked about the Sandwich Bay Marina court case. And in that case, they were wanting to put a marina directly in front of in Sandwich Bay that fronts our reserve. And we felt we couldn't back up anymore, we couldn't give anymore, and we had to do something. And so we went to court and got in a permanent injunction against construction of the marina based on our Douglas Treaty rights. And I mentioned 3 times at that hearing that I climbed up on the cables and stopped the dredger from digging in Sandwich Bay, and that I was prepared to do it again. And I say this about the tankers coming through. And they talk about the probability of a spill. I don't think it's a probability. I think it's more like a certainty. So, I guess to end with it, I would like to invite the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, into our territory to come and see for himself. So I'd like to ask you to invite him for us. Thank you.
Thank you.